Hey, babe. What are you up to?
Oh, not much. Just defended our keep in Crowfall and now just leveling up a New World.
Aren't those like the same game?
No. No, they're not.
Oh.
So before we start this video, I do want to let you know this video is sponsored by Crowfall. Now, even though Crowfall has sponsored this video, it in no way, shape, or form has influenced any of the information in this video. So I hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. All right, let's get started. Hey guys, Parfax here. Today, I am bringing you a video on the differences between Crowfall and New World. I've been hearing a little bit of chatter out there that, well, New World is just the upgraded Crowfall. Well, that is completely not true, and I wanted to kind of give you guys the differences between the two games, especially if you haven't played them as much as, say, I have. Now, I've been playing Crowfall for, man, it's been 5 years, and I've been playing New World. I played it in the first NDA alpha, or I should say the last NDA alpha before the open beta. I played the open beta, I was in the last alpha, and then now I'm in the closed beta. So I have a pretty good knowledge of both games, and I want to kind of give you guys the difference between the two. Now, before we get started with that, I just wanted to say that when we're going into details about these two games, we're not going to be talking about the specific details as in, well, this combat system is this combat system is this. For the most part, you can kind of look and judge the combat systems as they are. Crowfall has a more action-based, a little bit faster-paced combat. New World is more of a animation lock, slower-paced combat. Both are good. I've had a lot of fun in both, but we're not going to really go into details when it comes to that. We're really going to rely on the base game differences because there is a lot. All right, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the game focuses for each of these two games. First, we're going to start with New World. New World originally started off as a PvP survival game, like pretty much any other survival MMO, where when you kill somebody, you drop all your loot. It was a very PvP focused game. Now they've recently, as in the last like year or so, they've went a lot more towards the PvE aspect. They took out the always essentially flagged PvP system that they had, and now flagging is optional. Now, they have been putting in a lot of PvE dungeon type of things. They're called endeavors, which are essentially just PvE dungeons, where they are very cool, and they're going more towards the PvE route. They still do have some PvP things. They have the flagging system, which I mentioned. They have a PvP quest system, where you get PvP currency for doing their PvP quests. They have fort battles, which are essentially similar to like a Cyrodiil style like keep, where people can go up to it, attack it, you claim it, each side can do it. Now you have to be flagged to do it, and it's not instant, so it is open world. But if your faction controls that area, you'll get a bonus. So it's something that people want to go in there and continuously control. And then they have Outpost Rush, which is essentially like a PvEVP type of experience. It's really cool, but you can only do that once you hit 60. And then the last PvP thing they have is their city fights, which are 50v50 instant siege battles, where one group is trying to take over the fort or the city, and they'll go in. If they can take it, then they get to claim the city, and you can then control it. So they're a lot more PvE focused than they used to be, and they're continuously going more PvE, but they're still adding a little bit of PvP in there. Now, when it comes to Crowfall, they have doubled down on PvP. There is some PvE in the game where you can grind mobs, you can kill bosses, you can gather, you can craft, which is pretty standard in an MMO. But what they do is they use the PvE to facilitate PvP. For instance, they started adding things like hot zones. Hot zones are areas where you'll get a bunch of experience, you'll get more gold, you'll get better mobs, you'll get better skinning. You get a bunch of rewards for being in that zone, which then promotes PvP. Now, I mentioned that New World originally had the PvP system where you drop everything when you die. Crowfall has a semi-similar situation with that, except for you don't always drop all of your inventory, but you drop things like your gold and stuff like that. We'll touch on that soon. But again, Crowfall has doubled down on the PvP aspect of the game. It is very PvP focused, where New World is more PvE/PvP focused. Now that we know what the focus of each game is, so let's start talking about the biggest difference between the two worlds. First, New World has essentially a very standard MMO type of world. You have one world per server. For instance, I'm on NA East Thule. So while I'm on Thule and that character is there, I will always play on that same server. Now, in that server, all the towns, forts, territories, resources, and any other important locations never really change. Forts can change hands and people can own different cities, but the cities will always be in the same location and in the same region. Now, when it comes to Crowfall, on the other hand, it's a procedurally generated world that allows them to change the maps on every campaign. If you're not familiar with what campaigns are, here's the short version. Each world is like its own little server or channels if you ever played Black Desert. They are randomly generated, and when you go into the server, you may find different resources in different locations. You may find different maps entirely. The keeps will be in different locations. Essentially, everything is completely different from one from another. Now, inside of each of the worlds, there are seasons like spring, summer, fall, and winter. Each season brings its own set of perks, and once you get to winter and winter is over, the world dies and everything is lost forever. As you can see, the way the worlds interact with each other is vastly different in these two games. Crowfall is a dying world that changes with every world that you play on. Every time you go into a new campaign, which we'll talk about here shortly, it is essentially a brand new experience. Now, you can take your characters and stuff with you, so you're not losing everything, but when you're trying to traverse the world, when you're going into new campaigns, your guild has won the last one, everything's fresh and new. It's kind of similar to like Seasons in Diablo or Seasons in Path of Exile, except for you get to bring your favorite character along with you, along with a few extra goodies. Now, if you're looking for a more traditional MMO experience when it comes to your world, New World has that where nothing really changes. The last major thing I would like to talk about is the objectives of each game, or how you do your day-to-day operations. So when logging into New World, the first thing you're going to do is level up your character. This can take up to 160 to 180 hours to reach max level, which means you're going to spend the first few weeks leveling your first character in the game, unless you're a no-lifer and just grind it through. You will also spend a lot of time doing quests, grinding mobs, and gathering resources to level up. Once you hit max level, you'll find yourself doing invasions, which are essentially a PvE horde mode, where a large group of mobs attack your town, and then you must defend it. You can also do endeavors, which are endeavors, like I said, are essentially dungeons in New World. And you'll also find yourself killing infestations, which are essentially PvE areas where a group of mobs have corrupted an area, which corruption is typically like a poison. And you go in there, you'll kill some mobs, you'll kill a boss, and it'll clear the area. It'll give you some PvE rewards. So when it comes to PvP, essentially you'll be doing open world PvP over things like forts. You'll be doing open world PvP in things like your faction quests, which can give you materials, can give you gear. You'll be doing your instance PvP of your 50v50 city sieges, and you'll be doing your instance PvP/PvE of your outpost sieges. Now, the game is very structured in a theme park style MMO, where it really wants you to do certain events at certain times. Now, this isn't a bad thing if that's what you like, but it does have some random sandbox feel to it, at least a little bit, when it comes to things like your forts, which is your open world sieges, and your faction quests a little bit. They kind of do something very similar, where some of the faction quests will guide you to a specific location where the enemy faction is guided to be there too. So you will find some PvP there, but it's not hard to find PvP in New World. It's just finding it's a little different than something like Crowfall. So in Crowfall, there's very little PvE. You level to 30, which is the first level cap, and it's extremely fast. 1 to 30 takes approximately 3 to 4 hours, but you can also start at 25, which it cuts it down to almost an hour. Once you hit 30, your daily PvE grind is essentially just grinding mobs for gold and helping the guild. So when you're looking to help your guild, this can be done in many different ways, depending on what your guild's doing. You can gather resources for keeps. You can also get gold for your crafters. And this is a massive part of the game. But the game really leaves it up to you what you want to do. Speaking of doing whatever you want, let's talk about PvP. So in Crowfall, when you are in Dregs, which is the guild versus guild campaign, or what we call worlds, anywhere you're outside a safe zone, PvP is enabled. There's no flagging up for PvP. It is just turned on 24/7 for everyone. Also, when you're in the worlds, you can drop your items, like I said. In Dregs, you'll drop all of your inventory, so anything you have equipped will stay on you. But when you're in things like the tutorial zone, you can either lose half your gold or all of your gold, depending on which zone you're in. Now, with the fact that when you're in Dregs, they drop all of their items, this really ramps up the possibilities of doing things like ganking. Now, when talking about PvP and Crowfall, we have to talk about outposts, forts, and keep sieges. Outposts are small objectives that anyone can take for conquest points, and that's just the scoring system while you're in the campaign of Crowfall. Forts and keeps have a time window for these monster objectives, not only for giving you conquest points, but giving you loot when it comes to forts and buffs in a true home when it comes to keeps. Oh, and did I mention that Crowfall has only zone caps? So if you're looking for that 100 versus 100 gameplay, Crowfall consistently has that with forts and keep sieges. Now, the last thing I'll touch on really quick that is very important in the day-to-day gameplay that I lightly touched on earlier are the conquest points in Crowfall. Each campaign has seasons that I mentioned before and ends after winter, which I also mentioned. But the only thing I did not mention is that Crowfall campaigns have winners. Yes, winners. Each campaign has a rule set that players can use to gather many points through each season to try to lift their guild to victory. Top performing guilds get rewarded with massive rewards. These are not only things like conquest points, which are gained when taking things like forts and keeps. They also have other things from a very variety of different things you can do, like sacrificing skulls, sacrificing items to different gods. There's many different things other than just doing conquest. I just have a few minor points before we end this video. First, New World's character system is set up so whenever you change your weapon, you get a different skill tree and different abilities. Also, when you change your armor, they act differently depending on which one you use. Where Crowfall uses a specific class system, which has 3 promotions for each class, and an in-depth skill tree and discipline system, allowing each build to be different. Then finally, I did want to touch on crafting. Crafting in New World is pretty standard, where you craft to gain skill and better items. In Crowfall, the crafting is set up a lot more complicated. Stats, disciplines, race, and equipment all play a major part in your crafting skill, and you will need to rely on other crafters to help you craft the perfect piece of gear. Just because you are a blacksmith doesn't mean you can craft every piece of gear needed to make your item. Still need to rely on crafting specialties to help you forge the perfect weapon. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. These are 2 great games, and I just wanted people to understand the differences between the 2, because there are massive differences between the 2. But if you're looking to get anything Crowfall, you can look in the description down below. There's a link to get 10% off, and it helps me out as well. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Twitch.tv/Parfaxgaming. You can see me stream. I'm probably streaming right now. Go click it. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.